Hello and welcome to Business Connections. I'm Holly Allen, Director of Marketing and Communications for the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber is committed to helping businesses, and one of the new initiatives this year, new programs, is the Dayton Area Logistics Association, and that has created a heightened awareness and focus on the logistics and distribution industry that includes infrastructure. So today we're talking infrastructure. Our guests today, Paul Gruner, Montgomery County Engineer, as well as Fred Pausch, the Executive Director of the County Engineers Association of Ohio. I want to thank you both for being with us today. I want to start by asking you about your departments so that we get an idea of what you do and what you cover. So who wants to start? Can we talk about our departments?
I'll let Paul, the local county engineer, start here.
We'll start here locally.
Right. County engineers are responsible for everything involving the county roads. There's a county road system, and then there's a township road system, city, and of course ODOT. We're responsible for everything on the county roads, design, construction, maintenance of everything within the road right-of-way. And we're also responsible for all of the bridges on the township road system, and we are the engineers for the townships. So we act as their engineers, as if they had a city engineer. Then we're also responsible for reviewing all the deeds and plats for all the real estate conveyances in the county. That's another function we have. We have surveyors, and the county engineer is a surveyor.
So that's a lot of coverage area. Do you have any idea how many miles of road you cover?
We have about 320 miles of road, and we have over 500 bridges.
Wow. That's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. And that's just regionally.
That's just in our county.
Right, just in our county. So can you talk about the state level, what your department does?
Sure, Holly. I'm the Executive Director of the County Engineers Association, and we handle 29,000 miles of county roads and also over 26,800 bridges, county bridges here in the state of Ohio. And like Paul is an elected county engineer, that's pretty unique throughout the country, where he's actually kind of responsible for the voters are his boss. Mm-hmm. And it's our job at the statewide level to handle state legislation, taxation, and other avenues that affect county engineers throughout the state of Ohio.
When we're looking at our infrastructure here in the state and locally in Montgomery County, what are the needs? Where do we stand right now? I'll start with you, Paul. Do you want to talk about the county?
Yes, we're at the county. Our budget has increased a total of only 8% since 1989.
Wow.
All of our funding comes from gas tax and vehicle registration fees. And again, they haven't increased since 1989, and our budget's increased just 8% since then. And as far as the taxpayer, they're paying less tax than they did in 1989. Actually, less gas tax because of more fuel-efficient vehicles, so most people are paying maybe half as much gas tax as they did in 1989. And of course, inflation has eaten into what they're paying also. But our buying power is less than half of what it was in 1989. And so we're really reaching a critical stage where, unfortunately, both our road conditions and our bridge conditions are going down. And we do the best we can with the money we have, but we need to have some enhancement to our funding to just to at least partially make up for what we've lost in inflation in 25 years.
Fred, do you see that is the problem, or that's the immediate need, is the dollar across the state as well?
Holly, that's probably the biggest need out there right now. Let's keep in mind the number one job of a county engineer is the safety of the traveling public, whether they're on the roadways or they're on the bridges. Mm-hmm. And, I think we're at a crossroads here in not only Ohio, but also across the nation. You've seen 60 Minutes do big segments, and you've seen this lack of infrastructure funding in the news the last 4 or 5 years. And I think a lot of that is due to our aging system, mm-hmm. not putting enough money over time into roads and bridges throughout the whole country. Funding remains stagnant or has even declined. The county engineer receives money in two ways, basically. One through license tag fees at the local level, and then the other through the state gas tax. Mm-hmm. And each county receives the same amount of money from the state gas tax. And, of course, different counties will receive different pots of money based upon license tag fees as well. So those are the two main funding streams that have remained steady or even have gone down in the last 6 or 8 years, and that's why it's so important to even maintain a system. But now you've gotten the age of bridges, and 25% of the county bridges are over 50 years old and are in dire need of replacement. So it's not only trying to keep up, maintain what we have, but also replace aging infrastructure.
You both mentioned the state of our infrastructure. Can you give us a detailed overview of what our bridges and roads look like today?
You want to do county? And
Sure. We have, as I mentioned, our conditions are unfortunately going down. We were at a point where we had 1 or 2 bridges that were posted for load limit reductions. In the last year, we've added about 10 to that. We're in one part of the county, we're almost surrounding a school by load restricted bridges, so it affects the school buses as well. And we have about 30 structurally deficient bridges and 30 more that are functionally obsolete bridges, functionally deficient. And our pavement conditions are also going down. Unfortunately, we do keep potholes patched, but the overall condition of the pavements is going down because we're resurfacing only about 1/4 of what we were, again, 25 years ago, and half of what we were 10 years ago. So we have to pave the roads with real asphalt. We can't pave them with good intentions, unfortunately.
Right. Well, let me ask you, too, when you mentioned load restrictions, and you said school buses would be one of the things. If you put a load restriction on a bridge, does that mean just your everyday average cars can go over that bridge, or does it depend?
If cars can't go over it, we close it. If it gets down even close to that, we'll close the bridge, which we may have to do with a few of them that we have right now. But the load restrictions generally affect larger trucks, and they do affect school buses. We have a case where we're talking to school about possibly using smaller buses or limiting the number of kids that they put on a bus for one of our bridges.
Wow. And Fred, you cover the whole state, so I'm sure you see an even wider variety of situations. Can you tell us about statewide?
Sure, I'd love to. Of the 26,800 county bridges that we have, right now we have 5,400 of them that are either structurally deficient or functionally obsolete. And a lot of times when they're structurally deficient, they are load rated where cannot carry legal capacity of a truck or anything over, the legal load limit is about 88,000 pounds. Right now it's 80,000 plus a little extra 9-10% percentage there as well. But when county roads have to be posted, that means either they're single lane or they're widely restricted to a lot of uses. And so behind me, you'll see the map of kind of the state of Ohio, and our posted bridges are all in the red dots, and try to give you a kind of a statewide perspective of what's going on out there.
Right, and I think we do have that map to show the viewers. You can kind of see, it looks like it's pretty widespread. You do have some areas that have more concentrated dots, but the whole state looks like it has posted bridges.
No question, no question. They're all over the state of Ohio, and some counties worse than others. I'd also like to point out of these green dots here, this is a statewide program that was just started by the Ohio Department of Transportation called our Local County Bridge Program, where they are helping us to replace 200 plus bridges over the next 3 years in a $120 million funding stream that has come directly from the Department of Transportation and from Governor Kasich. And it's pretty, but by the time people see this tape, the governor will have signed the 2-year transportation bill. He signs it tomorrow, April 1st, in Columbus. So that's part of the program that will also be covered. But also keep in mind that even, these 200 bridges that are immediately getting fixed, it still leaves a lot of bridges out there that county engineers are concerned with. And that's why I think it's up to everybody that's watching this show to reach out to their local state representative and their state senator and to their congresspeople and say, look, hey, we have a major funding crisis here, not only in the state but across this nation, and we need more dollars for infrastructure repair of our aging system.
I know you're focused. Did you want to say something, Paul?
No, I was going to, and most congressmen acknowledge that we have a problem with infrastructure. It's a matter of what action they're going to take.
Well, and isn't that the problem? The why the funding isn't there? There's no agreement on where to find the money.
Right.
How do you monitor those trouble spots? You have a map with these dots. How do you keep track of where the problems are? We
inspect every bridge once a year, and if they're the ones that are in worse condition, we've got a couple we inspect weekly, and just to make sure that there are no changes in their condition, and we've got a very detailed inspection procedure we have to go through, and we have to load rate them. So we check them pretty carefully, but that doesn't make them get any better. It's just a matter of that's what leads us to getting to a point where we have to load rate some of them, maybe do some temporary repairs on the bridges. We have later this year we're going to let our Harshman Road Bridge replacement project, but we spent a couple $100,000 repairing it, just keeping it in shape to get there. I have here a piece of concrete that fell from the bridge onto the bike path. We had a real problem with concrete falling in the bike path. I got a call Christmas Eve a couple of years ago that we had a problem that day, and so we had to get our folks out there to make sure it was safe to make it a few weeks. Then we've put in a system to catch the falling pieces of concrete until we get the bridge replaced there. And there's a couple other things we've put temporary repairs into.
Well, that's a dangerous situation.
It is.
Have that falling on the bike path.
And the Harshman Road's not the only one. We have concrete falling from our 3rd Street Bridge, our Heathcliff Road Bridge, which we're in the process of replacing that one now, and Kiowee Street pieces fall off of. So we try to protect people and warn them as much as possible, but it is what it is. We also inspect our pavements on a yearly basis and calculate a pavement condition rating, and we use that to determine where we're going to put our limited amount of paving each year, and what other repairs. We do a lot of crack sealing and spot repairs on the roads as well.
Are our bridges and roads safe, would you say?
We make sure that they're safe for the traveling public, but they're not. For instance, the pavement conditions cause a lot of deterioration. The average person in this country, it costs about almost $400. Poor road conditions cost almost $400 in tires and alignment and general vehicle deterioration, which is pretty much that's what they're paying to build and maintain the roads right now, total. It just causes deterioration. Then with the bridges, like I say, we may have to close some, and we post the load limit reductions, which inhibit people's ability to get around. But we make sure we inspect them and evaluate them regularly enough so we make sure that they're safe to cross.
Fred, on the state level, are you able to inspect all the roads, the miles of roads and bridges you cover, or how do you monitor this situation?
Holly, that's a great question. A lot of times, as Paul mentioned, each county engineer has to load rate every bridge. A couple of years back, we had the collapse of the Minnesota Bridge. Unfortunate that happened, but it also brought in a lot more of federal regulations from federal highway on the bridges, and now we have to load rate each bridge and to see if they are safe or what loads at what capacity they can carry. And keep in mind, if a bridge is unsafe, it's closed. I mean, it doesn't matter if school buses, emergency vehicles, or anything cannot cross that as long as it's deemed unsafe. And so the county engineers do the best that they can to be out on the roads and monitor them. And probably right now the biggest thing they're doing is fixing the potholes out there that have created by the freezing of the ice and the water and the
lovely
expansion and everything else. The county engineers try to do the best job they can with the staff that they have to monitor these situations in every county.
And then do they report to your department?
They don't directly report to us. They have they actually report to their county, their Board of Commissioners. Every year they have an annual report that kind of details a lot of these situations and also kind of what they're trying to fix and what they've done over the past year, and accountability of their monies and that sort of thing. So they publicly report that to not only their constituents but also county commissioners as well.
We talk about our state, the state of Ohio situation versus our neighboring states. How do we stack up?
How do we stack up? I think Ohio is kind of a microcosm of what's happening all over this country. Over the next year, or even in the past couple years, you've seen 12 to 15 different states out there have talked about increasing their gas tax or increasing their state sales tax. That state up north they have a May ballot.
We're not mentioning the name.
Initiative that will go before their voters to not only increase their sales tax a penny for roads and bridges, but also raise the state gas tax as well. And keep in mind, just raising gas tax is not the ultimate solution. Mm-hmm. It's probably one of the easiest because most people identify that funding mechanism with roads and bridges. But keep in mind, you could increase tolling across the state. You could allocate some other general revenue money towards roads and bridges. You could change some tax structure at the state level as well. So there's more ways, and even a VMT tax, a vehicle miles travel tax. A state like Oregon has looked at this and basically tax cars on the usage fee on the miles that they travel during the given year. So you would pick up the hybrids and the electric cars. Right now, an electric car is not paying anything for roads and bridges here in the state of Ohio. So,
right.
It's these discussions that we have to have not only on a national-wide level but also on the state level to say, what are we going to do 5 to 10 years into the future? Because our bridges are not getting any younger, and
right.
like wine that gets better over time, our bridges do not. No. So,
well, and I think that's a good point. This is not something that's new. I mean, our infrastructure, goes back decades. We saw this coming. How imminent is it that something is done, something serious is done with the funding to improve our infrastructure, let's say over the next 5 years? Start with
well, it's very imminent for me because our budget is in a real crisis. We have, I mentioned the Harshman Road Bridge. We have several big bridges that we're replacing over the next few years that need to be replaced. They're in serious need of replacement. And we've garnered quite a bit of federal money to help with that process. If we didn't have the federal money, which is in jeopardy because of lack of action at Congress. If we don't have that money, we would have to close some of these bridges because we just can't afford to replace these on our own. That said, there's still a local share that we're struggling to come up with, and we're working with the county's Office of Management and Budget to try to make sure our budget survives over the next few years to get those replaced. So we're in critical need of. We may have to eliminate paving altogether in order to get these bridges replaced, and that's not good either. So we're in pretty dire need right now. We need something done within the next year or two for sure. We may have to turn back these federal funds and not replace these bridges.
And that's not a lot of time when you're talking about legislature having to go through, and make decisions. Would you say the state's in the same situation, Fred? Oh,
most definitely. I think in this region, everybody hears about the Brent Spence Bridge and how badly needs to be replaced. That's just one bridge. Keep in mind that's going to cost over $2.5 billion, the estimates, and that's only one bridge here in the state of Ohio. So, I think I think we're encouraged. The County Engineers Association is encouraged. The state legislature has set up a state funding committee on transportation cost and where do we go into the future? How do we sustain or how do we maintain or how do we put more emphasis on infrastructure here in the state of Ohio? So we're very encouraged by this legislative study committee. Hopefully we'll look at all the things out there, even even your dams, your levees, your public transportation, everything else that also needs more dollars as well around Columbus area, Buckeye Lake, and the dam there is failing, and it's going to cost a big sum of money to replace that as well. So not only roads and bridges are on the utmost of everybody's thought process, there's many modes of transportation as well.
And do you think there will be movement in the next few years when it comes to funding these projects?
I'm cautiously optimistic that there will be. Other states have talked about not only raising the gas tax, but even getting our arms around a bigger picture of futuristic vehicles and electric cars, like I've mentioned, and just even tolling or other possibilities, or changing the way we actually tax gasoline. If we tax it at the wholesale, that's a different, some more revenues as well. So these are all things that the state has been looking at.
I would say cautiously optimistic is how I would describe it as well. At the federal level, I'm also president of the Transportation Officials Division of the American Road and Transportation Builders Association, and they've been pushing long and hard, and they're getting pretty frustrated at the federal level. But the executive director there does, which is Fred's counterpart at the national level of this organization, does say he has more hope this year than he has for 6 or 7 or 8 years now. So there's cautious optimism there as well.
We talked about some of the obstacles. I think it just comes down to where do we find the money? How do we collect the money from taxpayers and so on? Do you think that is the basis of the issue? There's just no agreement in Congress how to do this?
That seems to be the issue, right?
That's one of the issues. I think another issue that either locally, statewide, or federally, I think people are willing to pay more if they know exactly what that money is going for. Mm-hmm. There's been cases in counties throughout Ohio that have placed an additional percentage on their county sales tax, and they say this is just for roads and bridges in the county. And those have seemed to be much more effective than other forms of just kind of general taxation, because everybody pays too many taxes, right, Holly? Mm-hmm. You pay too many taxes, I pay too many taxes. But I think it's talking about, you want to talk about jobs, you want to talk about economic viability here in the state. What better way to replace and upgrade our infrastructure? You want to talk about jobs, and keep in mind that all travel begins and ends on a county road. So even those agriculture or the shale fracking that have to get their products to market, they have to go on county roads.
Right. Did you want to say something?
Nobody likes real estate taxes and all those. We have the ability to add a real estate tax, put it before the voters for roads and bridges, but I just don't think that's the proper way to fund roads and bridges. The gas tax, license fees, a vehicle mile travel fee are things that directly relate to how much people use the road. So it's a user fee. They pay for using the roads.
And we talked about, you just mentioned jobs and the economic situation. That's one of the things I mentioned at the beginning of the show, that the Chamber has created this new program, the Dayton Area Logistics Association. And the real impetus for that was to give that industry and those businesses a voice on subjects like this. Do you work with the logistics industry at all, any of the businesses? Because as much as consumers and your everyday drivers are concerned with the infrastructure problems in our region, those businesses are watching it even more closely. Is there a relationship there where they're able to express their needs? Yes, we do, although the Logistics Association that the Chamber's put together is a great thing to improve those communications, and that's a great thing. They do recognize the need for a strong transportation system, and they're the first to feel it if there's a bridge closed, or if there's pavements that aren't in good condition, or there's a need for improvement in a road to improve capacity so they can get their product to market quicker. On the state level, is there a conversation, would you say? You know, Holly, I'm encouraged by the Dayton Chamber of Commerce and the effort that they're putting into a regional voice
then not only get the business community, but also county engineers involved to say, look, our future depends on infrastructure. And, I think we need more chamber of commerces throughout the state to make their voice heard, to say, hey, yes, this into the 21st century, I guess, that we are now, that we have to continue to, put our money kind of where our mouth is, and we're always, Ohio is always considered one of the flyover states. Well, they fly over us, but they also transport goods through us as well.
Right, and that was one of the points of the Dayton Area Logistics Association, that we really are a hub with the coming together of 70 and 75. So this is a big topic, especially for Montgomery County and our region. So that's something that the Chamber is taking on, and I'm sure there will be many more conversations about this in the future. I want to leave you with a little pie in the sky question. If it was a perfect world and you had your say on how to solve this problem, what would you do?
Well, we would like to get back to where we were 25 years ago in terms of our funding, and that would actually take both a gas tax increase and a license fee increase. What we're hoping for as an urban county is just to get the legislature to allow us to locally put on a license fee increase. But to really get us to where we need to be, we would need a gas tax increase. And again, that would really put taxpayers back where they were 25 years ago, because with fuel efficiency, they're paying about half as much gas tax as they were the last time the gas tax was raised. We had a little bit of an increase in the early 2000s, but that was eaten up immediately by more fuel efficient vehicles and inflation. So we would need a gas tax increase and a license fee increase. And the rural counties depend much more on the gas tax increase. So that's really where they need something done.
Well, I've seen figures as high as $1 trillion being floated by certain U.S. senators that says that's what we need just to kind of catch up. I think one of my first druthers, I guess you would say, would be an index for inflation, an index on the gas tax or the state gas tax, federal or state. I mean, keep in mind, federal gas tax has not been raised since 1993. And I think if you would ask any of your listeners out there, your viewers out there, if you can maintain your household income on what you made in 1993, I don't think many of them could. So just that, even that index to have a variable would probably be one of my first things I would change, or at least so we wouldn't always have to come back and say, hey, let's raise this, let's keep raising this, let's raise it. Because that's not the ultimate answer, but I think that would be the overnight quick fix, or at least, catch us up to where we have to go.
A lot of work to be done. Like I said, a lot of conversations to be had. I want to thank you both for being with us today. We appreciate your insight as we move forward with this Dayton Area Logistics Association that I have mentioned. If you want more information on how to join that association or more information on the Chamber's initiative, go to DaytonChamber.org. And of course, you can stay updated on all things Chamber by following us or friending us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Have a great day.
One of the mounting concerns we have as a community that is very dependent on our autos and trucks, is how do we continue to maintain the infrastructure we now have in place? Looking back to the early days of the auto, or even over the last 50 years as we built the interstate highway system and saw our suburban communities grow, almost no one really could foresee the need for the dramatic growth of our roads and highways. Certainly not at the current level we're at. Seems as long as we grew in America and those communities grew, we had the resources to continue to fund that growth as well as the maintenance and repairs. But now 50, 60 years have passed and we just haven't kept pace with those needs. Our roads and bridges are falling apart, many at unsafe levels. One might say we should have seen this coming. Some did and tried to warn us. But along the way, the need to fund schools, social services, the criminal justice system, healthcare, and more seemed to use up the resources we thought would never start coming in at significant levels. we're now faced with some future dilemmas. Very few people want to pay for our roadways and bridges with additional tax dollars. So what can or should be done? Today's program was meant to open up this dialogue, not just for our own region, but this issue transcends beyond that to the rest of Ohio and throughout America. One thing is for certain. If we're to remain the world's most important economic powerhouse, we must have the transportation infrastructure in place to move our people, manufactured goods, and services throughout our state and national network in a manner that gives us and keeps us at a competitive advantage. This is not just an economic issue, but also one of safety. We don't need more people killed by crumbling bridges. Your thoughts on this issue are welcome by our Chamber of Commerce.